Welcome to Pixel Theater, everyone. My name is Nick Noel, and I am one of your hosts on our ridiculous endeavor. And I am joined, as always, by my co-host.
A guy who I may not have revealed used to be called Ronnie Cage before I went into hiding, so now I just go by Ron.
And today, Ron alluded to subtly, we are going to be talking about Mortal Kombat, the newest one. This is probably our most timely podcast ever. Like, we're actually talking about a movie that only came out last Friday, so that's pretty crazy.
We were kind of close with Sonic, weren't we? But maybe we weren't.
I don't know. I think we recorded it close. I don't remember when we released it.
Yeah, it's not a good point.
So this is Pixel Theater, everyone. If you're asking yourself, what's Pixel Theater? Well, it is a podcast. It is also a YouTube show. It is also a brand of guitar that only jazz musicians play. So that's pretty cool. And what do we do on this little show? We talk about video game adaptations. Nope. Film adaptations of video games. I had a pretty good streak there of not saying it incorrectly, but I just fucked it up. Fucked it up all over again. But that's okay. It is what it is, you know. Why expect excellence in the face of adversity, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So we look at movies based on video games. We talk about them. We also talk about the games themselves. And then we also, we just chit-chat a little bit. So that's kind of what our show is. And we're going to go into that first segment where we just kind of, talk about what we've been doing. And we're going to go right now and head into the lobby.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
So, Ron, we've been doing a lot of these like back to back, and it's hard to do things different still in the pandemic. But have you done anything besides play Pirates with your friends?
Well, it's funny because, we're talking about a very quintessential entry, and we kind of went over our history with the game when we talked about 1995's Mortal Kombat movie. But it is interesting with that coming out. I haven't really played any of the Mortal Kombats. I've actually been going through like the Samurai Showdown series and a lot of the NeoGeo stuff. So when I'm not playing Pirates, I've been playing old NeoGeo games, which, man, I don't know how hip you were to that system when we were in high school, but that was like, and we may have covered this already, but I have no memory. But my gosh, that was an interesting, it was this big honker of a system, and the cartridges were this wide. They were massive, because it was just an arcade board that they let you buy at home, and you put it in the machine. But I had this magazine, this little like newspaper printout, and it had the prices of all the games, and I just remember being in like 9th grade and looking at Metal Slug, and it was $380 for the game, and then like $500 for the cartridge to play it on. But now I've got that stand-up arcade, and I have every NeoGeo game on it, and it's still just kind of like this little victory over time where I'm like, yeah, I own all of you now, and I pay nowhere near that much for it. But it's a great system. It's a good like lineage of games. I love Samurai Showdown. I love Last Blade. Some really good fighters on that system. So that's what I've been doing. How about you?
That sounds a lot of fun. Some of those older games still hold up pretty well.
They hold up. Yeah, they're probably not on the same level as Street Fighter, but they're still varying degrees of.
I keep every once in a while. So like a long time ago, my wife got me one of those little like Genesis emulator things that has like a bunch of Genesis games on it. You can just play them. You can't really, I don't think you can like save or anything, but if you just want to go down nostalgia road. So I keep intending to go back and play that a little bit. There was one game that I did a fair amount of because it stuck in my memory, even though it wasn't like a great game, I don't think. And I feel like it was called Comics or like
Comic Zone.
Yeah, Comic Zone.
A comic book. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was a great one.
And I played through that a fair amount, but so I am I hope this podcast can attest that I am actually not good at video games. I just like them. And so, like, I remember playing that game as a kid and not knowing that there was a double jump option. So in order to get over especially long gaps in the comic panels, you had to, double jump. And I didn't know that that was a thing, so I would just keep trying to single jump, and I would die. I think I must have died there 100 times, and I just kept playing because that was the game I had. But, like, it's only, I don't know, 15 minutes into the game when that happens. So, like, oh, man.
That game was really neat to me.
And it's, like, comic book integration, because, like, you would literally, like, go to the next page, and you'd, like, grab the side of the border and flip into it, and I had a lot of fun with that, yeah.
There was a lot of it, because I think, if I'm remembering it correctly, it also incorporated, like, video into it, so, like, it looked like there was a real guy, or maybe it was just a picture of him.
I think it was pictures, because I think it was more comic book stuff, but it was one of very few games that had, like, cutscenes, I think. Now you say that, I'm not quite sure, but it was cool to me when on those, in that era of game when they did that. We're so used to that now. Here, watch this 40-minute mandatory intro before you get into your game. That's just kind of everything right now. But back then, you didn't. Ninja Gaiden 3, I think, was the first game on my radar that had like a cinematic kind of intro and cutscenes and endings. I guess, you beat Mega Man 2 or 3, and you were just standing on the edge of a train at the end of it. And it's like, hey, you won. Like, that was it. Like, there was, like, no story. And, like, hey, you beat it.
So, yeah, I mean, I haven't really been doing anything new since we talked last, but I have been intending to do new things, I guess, is where I am with that.
That's all the pandemic for me.
The only thing that I did that isn't interesting to anyone except me is I started my seeds for my garden. So they've been growing. So I've got some tomatillos, I got some tomatoes, cucumbers, that kind of stuff growing. I actually, like, bought a grow light this year, so, like, they've been doing a lot better. I got a heating pad. Yeah, so, I'm just going right from mid-30s to late 60s. That's my plan.
You'll be ready when this pandemic never ends to grow food, so.
No, because most of my plants die. Like, last year was the only time it was even marginally successful. And really, all I can ever make is pickles. So if anybody needs some pickles, I'm probably going to make a lot of those.
I like pickles.
Thanks, Ron. Running commentary from Ron Stratton. Okay, everybody.
Those are good.
So let's move out of this segment and into something that's interesting. And let's head into the arcade where we're going to talk about Mortal Kombat, the game. Okay, everyone. So we're here. We're in the arcade. It's pretty great. And I want to admit something. I lied to you. Because we've already talked about this game a lot, so we're not really going to talk about it a whole bunch. Instead, we're going to talk about an alternate universe version of this game, because that could be fun too. So, Ron, let's just start out. Is there anything that, in your exhaustive knowledge and love for Mortal Kombat that you wanted to express before we never, ever talk about it ever again until the sequel?
Until the sequel or 4 come out.
Well, yeah, we've started this kind of fun thing of games we wish we had, and I don't mind talking about it because we'll never get them financed ourselves, so I really want people to rip us off and create these games. And I want all the lawyers to kind of settle whatever grievances they need to, because if we can get Spider-Man away from Sony and into the Marvel Universe, I think we can finally get legit Mortal Kombat versus Street Fighter happening.
Okay.
It's always been this
Why
kind
is that
of,
contingent? Oh, you mean, like, if that can happen, this can happen.
If that can happen.
I thought you just meant, like, something like Spider-Man was the negotiator between them. We need to get him out of that deal so he can negotiate between Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter.
Yeah, because we Marvel versus Capcom. Spider-Man teamed up with Ryu. He's got some history with those guys. But we've come close. We've danced around it. but we've never gotten to the point, because I think just the powers that be with Capcom never wanted their Street Fighter characters treated with the level of violence that has. Now, Injustice is an interesting kind of bending of that, because it was the same thing with DC. You know, they don't really do traditional fatalities in those games, and I think it was it just Mortal Kombat versus DC? Is that what they did? I just remember Scorpion fighting Joker. But it was a couple of franchises that I didn't actually get into.
But I would love to see
Do you think that's only, like, if they did that versus DC, do you think that's only because Street Fighter did one versus Marvel? And they're like, well, we got to do it too?
Well, partially that, and the relationship Ed Boon has with, NetherRealm, his game company has with DC, because they produce the Injustice games. So I think contractually they're allowed to play with those characters, and that's how that game came to be. But it was really cheesy. It was very Mortal Kombat 4 looking. But yeah, it was neat. Like what they play with is cool. And if they took that route, I wouldn't mind it. You know, if you temper it a little bit. But then you know, I don't know, because Mortal Kombat's dabbled with tag team play a lot. Like Mortal Kombat 9 had a really low-key mode that was incredible, because you could be like Kung Lao and SubZero, and you're playing as the characters at the same time and tagging them in. And I think they nailed it more than like any Marvel versus Capcom game did, even though they are kind of the pioneers of that. I enjoyed playing it in Mortal Kombat immensely. So something with like a Street Fighter 3 style Street Fighter side meets like a more modern version of Mortal Kombat, where we've touched on this in the last one. They really came into their own with these last 2 or 3 games of it not just being like, hey, look at she's skin tight outfit and he ripped off his skull. You know, there's actually some mechanics of gameplay that are really good in the new ones, and like, you know, it's a respectable esports fighting tournament style game now. So I just think it would mesh well with the Street Fighter games. I would play it.
That would be interesting. I was listening to How Did This Get Played, which is another vastly more successful video game podcast.
We're almost there.
I think they were talking about Mortal Kombat, the original one, probably because the movie was coming out. And somebody brought up this quote from the game designer of Street Fighter, and I can't remember his name, unfortunately, but he was talking about the differences between Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, and how it kind of shows the difference between like Japanese game design and American style game design, where in 100%. Mortal Kombat, it's about the ending. It's about winning, and like that finishing move is like the big payoff for playing the game. But in Street Fighter, he was talking about like the ending is almost not as important. The fun part is in the actual fighting and the individual moves and the individual, you know, seconds of how you're reacting to each other. So there's not a big thing that happens at the end of a fight, and really it's not where the enjoyment comes from. Like, it's just kind of there and then it's over. The important part is the interplay between the two fighters. So I don't know, I thought that was kind of interesting. And
that's some of the best Street Fighter matches. I mean, you watch a Mortal Kombat, and sure, it could be a good square off, but yeah, it is all about, oh, he did a brutality. My favorite moments in Street Fighter have been just, you know, these parry fests where it's 2 characters on the, you know, this the 3rd round. It could go either way, and they've each got this much life left, but you're invested in it really is a game of chess more than any other fighting series. I mean, the characters are so well balanced. Mortal Kombat, especially 2, has got some glaring issues with like Melina just dominating anybody. But if you're Jax, you can always it's just some cheesy elements to that game that never worked for me.
That's true. You know, out of the 2 of them, I wouldn't have thought Mortal Kombat was the cheesier one, but it definitely is. Like,
yeah. It's
especially watching the movies, I guess. So I have kind of 2 ideas. One is a joke, and one is actually something I would find kind of interesting. So you were bringing up chess, and what if like we did Mortal Kombat style, but like just a chess match? So like virtual chess, where you just had like all the pawns were like I don't know, Liu Kang, and then like Raiden was the king, and Sonya Blade was the queen, or something like that.
Sure.
And then when you
could have Shaolin monks be the pawns. You could have the Outworld monks be the opposing team.
Mhm.
But man, I mean, you ever play battle chess in the early days? of PC
I
gaming?
vaguely remember it.
So much fun. It was just normal looking chess, but then like it would kind of cut to this crude FMV, and the knight would behead the pawn, and it would just be these little gruesome battles, and yeah, that'd be perfect for Mortal Kombat.
Like that, but like they would do a finishing move or something like every time you took a piece. So like
I'd play the hell out of that. Honestly, I'm surprised they naturally didn't get there, because they always had really interesting mini games. You remember that? Like they have a Tetris clone. Pong was in it. There's some other game too, but I'm surprised they never reached the Mortal Kombat chess. But I'm sorry, what were you gonna say with Reptile? What would be good?
nothing. It was just like, if Reptile attacks Johnny Cage, he just spits him with acid or something. But
That could be good.
I guess I would
That could be
imagine that
good.
they would be knights, I think. I don't really have a good reason for it. I just
Well, you
imagine
have your
like
two
definitely
strongest
Scorpion and
players be
yeah. I feel like Scorpion and SubZero would be bishops though.
bishops for
Again,
sure.
I don't know why, but that's just my feeling. So the other thought I had though was take the Mortal Kombat characters and make it like a Final Fantasy style RPG where you're like picking one side or the other, and then you're going through like an actual narrative that this game always pretends that there is, but it's somehow always in the background next to the like just 60-second fights that are happening. So like you can
did you play
can
the
get a
last
party
two?
together.
Did you play like Mortal Kombat 10 or 11?
I feel like I might have played Mortal Kombat 10, but it might have just been 9. I'm not sure.
They get there. They're almost there. I think what your idea's got better gameplay mechanics, but the story modes are like 3-hour movies. And what's interesting about them is you play as every character. So you'll start off as Johnny Cage, and like Molina will shoulder check him. He'll be like, "Hey, what's your problem, chick?" And then they would fight. And then you'd move on, and then there'd be like a kind of natural act 2, and then you'd be Liu Kang and then Raiden. But it was fun how it went from silly to serious depending on who you played as. But what an interesting series this Mortal Kombat is. It's just so funny to me how much like mythology there is in it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's something that I was vaguely aware of, and then the movie kind of brought it up a little bit more too. So any kind of final thoughts about the game before we move into our review?
Yeah, no, I mean it's great. It's got a good track record. The Mortal Kombat 11 is getting I think it got kind of like a PS5 Xbox upgrade, but no, maybe not an official one yet. So that's kind of what I want, is a more robust version of it, or at least more DLC or a sequel announcement.
So let me toss this out there as a bridge to the movie. Like, eventually all media is going to be owned by one company. So when that happens, do you think it would be possible to get like a Mortal Kombat movie that just encompassed every character that had been in a Mortal Kombat game? So like, and I don't just mean like all the standard ones. I mean RoboCop, Terminator, Hellraiser, I think was in there. Wasn't Pinhead in one maybe or something?
No, I wish. That would have
Okay.
been cool.
I don't know why I thought
We got
that.
Freddy, we got
Freddy, that's
Jason.
why. Yeah. And they just had like a cinematic battle royale,
like a film though.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I
watched
guess that's
it.
kind of what Ready Player One is. And, we saw how that turned out.
As soon as you said that, all I could think of is them shoehorning Iron Giant into this as well, because I think he's popping up in another movie coming out soon.
Ready Player One, too? I guess that's Ready Player 2, isn't it?
No, I'm gonna laugh, but it's a big trailer for something that just got released, and the Iron Giant shows up in it again. Oh, Space Jam. Space Jam is also a character. It's very Ready Player One-esque. So
So Disney, no, Warner Brothers owns the Iron Giant, so they just put him in there?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Just
weird.
stick him in
I don't know
everything.
why, but that feels weird to me. Weird and wrong.
Yeah. It's not cool.
it's one of my favorite movies of all time, and they're just like, let's get more milk from this cow.
Now he plays basketball.
Yeah, it's awful.
Anyway, maybe at the end he'll like sacrifice himself and get a technical foul and get kicked out of the game, much like
I hope so.
the end of the the actual movie. Okay, everybody. That's going to wrap up this arcade section, and we're going to head into the feature presentation. I know this has probably been torture for you not talking about this movie. What's on your mind? What do you think? What happened? Where did this movie hurt you?
Okay. No, I'm just going to go on a brief tangent because I'm a little more... If we talked about it hours after I'd seen it, I'd be a little more animated. Because I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed.
Okay.
So, the movie starts off, and it almost reminded me of those kind of Chuck Norris ripoffs that would come out in the 80s, where they would front load a movie, hoping the investor would turn it off after 10 minutes and then just give them money anyway. Because that happened a lot. The opening 10 minutes of this are so strong and so well executed and just incredibly serious and what I've always wanted from this franchise. I almost cried. Like, I'm just looking at, like, there's Scorpion and SubZero and the meeting of these two, like, ice and fire characters. Like, it was everything right. It was done so well. And then go ahead.
I remember, like, during that part, I was watching it, and I turned to Lauren and I was just like, wait, does this movie rule? Like, is this the best movie ever made?
Is this the best video game adaptation? Pump your brakes, because as soon as I can tell you where the bus went careening off the cliff for me is that shot of SubZero walking towards Shang Tsung in Outworld, and the camera's kind of arcing around him. I audibly, by myself, at 7 a.m. when I'm watching this, said, "Oh no,"
Because
it felt like high-end Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
at its best.
You know, it's the Mortal Kombat Annihilation effort and writing and story structure with money. And like it's sad though. The W.S. Anderson Mortal Kombat is still a better movie to me.
When
It's a more
sticks it right, it
consistent
gets it-
movie.
It's a more consistent movie. My problems are Cole Young, like Louis Tan. That character was useless and it was not present. I didn't care about him and his family. I didn't care about him because I didn't have any investment in him. I care about Sonya and I care about Jax.
His character was added, right?
He's just a new character just for this series. And you know, him and the guy who played Shang Tsung was Chen Han, who's done some cool stuff, but he looked just completely. Oh yeah, he was in The Dark Knight, you know, but he was sleepwalking in this role. I felt nothing from him as Shang Tsung, and so there's this moments that just really bummed me out because all I could think of was Mortal Kombat Annihilation. So the movie has this really strong 8 minutes, meanders for the next hour, and then has a pretty strong last 10 minutes. But I think the heartbreaking thing for me is everything I liked was in the trailer. So I had no surprises, you know, because everything that wasn't in the trailer was a huge disappointment to me. So I was really bummed, man, because this was like my, like, there was Mortal Kombat and Dune this year. Like, really, like, on my radar, it's the only two movies I kind of cared about. Because I love the Godzilla series, but King Kong vs. Godzilla just was kind of there. And it didn't hurt me, because I love so many of them that are just absolute stinkers. But you know, I don't know. I don't know what I expected. When I talk to friends at work, it's a very polarizing film. Because people have enjoyed it, and I'm really glad they enjoyed it. Because I want them to do a sequel. The guy who played SubZero is one of my favorites, Joe Taslim from The Raid. I mean, if anyone watches this and didn't like it, go watch The Raid immediately. It's such a good palate cleanser. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. He's signed on for 4 more movies after this, you know. So there's an attempt to make a franchise of films out of this, and it sounds like it's doing reasonably well. And I think they would be a little more lenient as far as box office numbers that would necessarily negate. Like, I'm sure they're going to make at least one more. You know what I mean? Like, Sonic, I think technically may have underperformed. But, you know, for a while it was the #1 movie in America because there's no movies. Now all of a sudden we've got a Sonic 2 being produced, you know? So Mortal Kombat might be in that realm of getting a sequel. Real quick, though, and before I stop, the good was Josh Lawson as Kano. He was wonderful. A little too much but what was there was good. Little sequences worked really well. Like, I loved him fighting with Sonya in the trailer park. Like, that was
that reptile Sonya Blade, like, Kano sequence
cool.
was pretty awesome. Yeah.
The individual fight bits were well done because they were choreographed well, and these guys are actual martial artists and they played off of each other. Yeah, most of them, and a lot of that worked. Kung Lao had a lot of good there's some wonderful fan service. Everything I saw Kung Lao do was legit from the game. He did a Mortal Kombat 3 combo. He did stuff from the new games.
I appreciate that, but it is where what we see with these video games is when you try and make these characters real people, it becomes very silly. He's a silly person we're supposed to take seriously. He has a hat that's a razor blade, Ron, and his hat digs into the earth and then cuts people in half like a saw blade. That's not a real thing. That's not a thing a person does. Like, I'm on board with fireballs, but razor hats, I can only go so far.
The part that I was like, what? And I forget.
Sorry, I'm just laughing at how incredulous Aaron is.
Razor hats are real. They just don't do a lot of teleporting.
That's also true. Yeah.
And she's a very attractive actress. There's nothing against her. She had nothing to work with. But when the woman shows up as Natara, that was like a, whoa, you don't work in film. She was a cool character in the games, but that was another one where I was like, I like Nathan Jones a lot from Mad Max. So his Ryuko thing was cool because his whole character has a lot of weird Shao Kahn connections. And so it's cool they gave him Shao Kahn's hammer for this, So it was neat little touches like that were cool. But
he was barely in it, like...
Yeah. That's where the movie kind of tripped up on itself to me. It was like, let's teleport to these guys and have fights with them real quick. Let's have Goro just fight you in your backyard. That was so underwhelming. Like,
Yeah, there's certain things that seem off to me about the planning of the movie. Like, they do all this fan service stuff I think, a detriment of the film sometimes. Like, anytime a real person says fatality, I'm like, nope, I don't need to. No thanks.
You don't need to say your quips.
We don't need
allowed that one joke. No one else should be doing it.
Yeah. The only person at a certain point who seemed like they were trying to have fun was the guy who played Kano. And I think he was like, yeah, guys, this is like a goof. And everybody else was playing it dead serious. And that makes sense if the movie they're in is that first 8 minutes. Because that's doing the most serious thing you can with this goofy premise. But then they're like, we're going to throw this out, and we're basically just going to run this through the Paul W.S. Anderson filter, and we'll come out at the other end. I want to know what was going on in the background, because if you look at who made this movie, so many people are like, this is basically the first thing they did. It's like the director has done very little in the film industry as far as I can tell before this. One of the main writers hasn't done that much. I think he wrote this. There's another guy, David Callahan, I think, who has done a lot of genre stuff. He did Godzilla. He did Jean-Claude Van Johnson, which is a weird Amazon series. I think he was involved with Wonder Woman 1984. So he's in the industry, maybe not in the things that everybody thinks are the best, but he's an established screenwriter.
He's a player. Yeah.
And so it's just weird that there's this crazy tonal shift where I can't figure out why. I really the only thing that makes sense is they started with the first 8 minutes and then got scared that people were going to either laugh at them for taking it too seriously, or the fans weren't going to like it for making it too different. But I don't know.
It's maddening. I feel like they spread themselves too thin. Everything was trying to pull off the Outworld elements didn't work. And that was the last thing I think we were really you were explaining it, but going back to me being okay with there being no tournament, like I was fine with them setting up and giving us a movie that gathered the players together so that the next one would be all about the tournament. That's actually kind of genius to me because, you get all the mess out of the way, and I would have been fine with this movie executing well and then establishing the playing field for a second movie that was just blood sport, was just Enter the Dragon, like no setup, just we're at the tournament and that's the whole movie. Did you like there was an interesting addition to the universe that I kind of dug in the whole Highlander aspect of like you're a chosen warrior, but if you're beat by someone, they inherit that power, then they have their own special powers to unlock. Like kind of silly, but it worked.
It's silly only in that it's obviously a retcon because like the powers are half the time the powers are so silly, but like, and there's no consistency with it. But
I have a big problem with someone getting metal arms.
Like for your power to like add panels of a metal arm is really silly, or a laser eye, but like
Sonya being able
or
to
a razor hat, Ron, a hat that's also a razor.
That was my least issue out of all the powers. Like it's like, yeah, he does that.
That's the one that
I accepted that. I'm already in. I just want you to look like you spent more than $45 on your wide shots.
I guess my question is, can he turn any hat into a razor? Is it that he can touch the hat and it doesn't hurt him? What's the actual power? Does he have to have a razor hat and his power is actually just controlling hats?
I think the razor hat's passed down because the original Kung Lao won the first Mortal Kombat 500 years ago, and I think he had the hat.
Okay.
So maybe it's just a really cool family hat. It's like Indiana Jones's hat, But I wonder if you gave him Indiana Jones's hat, I bet you he could cut people with it, or at least teleport with it.
Should Indiana Jones be in Mortal Kombat? Has he?
Sure. Why not?
His finishing move is just to shoot you and walk away.
Oh my god, after Alien and Predator and they've added so many wonky characters. I'm bummed because Ash from Evil Dead was supposed to be in it. To the fact that like Bruce Campbell, there was just a lot of weird legal issues and they couldn't make it happen. But when they hacked all the game files for 10, I think it was, no, maybe it was 11, they could see character elements for Ash. And there's a chainsaw revving. It could still happen because I think the last trailer did the chainsaw. We haven't seen all the characters yet, but I think it's a big legal mess, so we may not ever get it. But it'd be fun.
So back to this movie, though. I guess I can see what you mean, like where they're setting it up. I just wish that was more made more clear. Like, there's so I know it's a Mortal Kombat movie. But I wish there was a little bit more like dialogue or character.
Well, see, that's where I get kind of mad at that excuse. So again, I'm very glad people are enjoying it and having fun with the movie. But I feel like you're being really dismissive to a franchise I care about when you're like, oh, it's not supposed to be good. It's like, well, yes, it is. And when your pedigree starts off with Scorpion and his history in a way that is so well done, like, the movie should have only been about Scorpion and SubZero. And these other players kind of came and went, but you're focused on Scorpion's journey. And that's a huge misfire to not do that. So
I wonder if they couldn't get that. Maybe there was just like not able to get those actors or that specific actor for the whole movie.
Well, Sonato's
or
a big actor, and I mean, my God, he's pushing 60 when he filmed this. That's so cool, But
it does make sense if you want that actor but can't get him for the whole movie. Why you would have it be like his descendant or something? But I agree, like it would have been a much more. I think so. Let's talk about let's try and wrap up with just what we would like to have seen maybe a little different and then our rating. I think it would have been interesting to treat that to make it tonally more like those first 8 minutes or so. Have Scorpion be in hell, have it be partially his journey out of hell, and then him disrupting the ongoing tournament. So, like, don't make this new guy the main character. Make him an ancillary character, where he realizes he's like Scorpion's great-great-grandson or something, and then he comes into a power that isn't being beaten up. Like, that would all...
That's such a horrible power. I can get punched a lot. It's to the point that my body makes armor so I can keep getting punched. I mean, I guess he kind of had like a Black Panther energy absorption thing happening, but...
Yeah, I guess. They didn't make that super clear.
Yeah, Aaron brought up Scorpion's Inferno, and that's what I want. Give me his journey through hell. Hell, he could run into Outworld characters. He could kind of establish, almost like Kratos from God of War, and like, I'm gonna get revenge. And by the time he
comes out of it, it's modern day.
I mean,
like that could have been interesting.
You could have dual storylines that meet in the third act, where this guy learning about the tournament, and then Scorpion's traveling through hell, and maybe they were trying to do that, but all they ended up with, we've got about 3 5-second shots of Scorpion like throwing some stuff around.
It got so erratic with its like cutaways. I don't know.
Is there anything else you would want to change? If I could change, I want to say one thing I would change about this movie, but I want you to go first.
Okay. I like the cast. Everyone did a fine job with what they were given. It's just this meandering, like when you watch like the He-Man movie, like Masters of the Universe, and you're like, what's happening with this? That was how the whole like Cole with his family and then going to this temple in the middle of nowhere to train, that all tonally reminded me of really bad movies.
Mm-hmm.
And there was nothing
Quest.
that
like the Quest. God, the Quest I think is more competent than this, because at least
it was consistent,
Plus, it's got that awesome part where Jean-Claude Van Damme's in old man's makeup and beats up that entire bar.
I gotta tell you, like every month or so, I catch myself in the shower humming that theme song, because that's still in my head. It's like I'm not doing it right, but it's in my head and it's great, and I love the music to that movie. But yeah, Mortal Kombat. I don't know. I don't have like a more finite approach because I'm so upset with like everything that makes up the movie. I would have focused on Scorpion. I would not have had the character of Cole Young at all. I would have had bridging storylines of Sonya hunting Kano, and then being this weird relationship where they have to work together. And everything kind of neatly comes together. So maybe Cole is this guy training, and we don't know why he's important, but we sure as hell don't focus on him. And then by the end, you see the familial connection, and he ends up helping Scorpion. Really bummed out. I'm so upset about this movie.
What the only... So I would, if I had all the power in the world, yes, I would change it to be more like that. If I could just take if I could pay $100 and just get to the final like cut of the film and just splice out 1 second of audio, I would make it so Scorpion doesn't say "get over here," because it doesn't make any damn sense for the way that they portrayed that character to do that.
Well, the way they portrayed that character doesn't make sense. You're right, and that is shoehorned. However, I think they did a redub because it sounds better than it did in the trailer. The trailer is very Bane-esque. And
I think they attempted to make it a little clearer in the movie.
And again, that's another one where I'm just such a Mortal Kombat devotee that I'm like, he needs to say that. I didn't like the excessive ADR that was happening. Not ADR, well, ADR, but like the off-screen quips. Because the daughter would be like, "Dad, use your uppercut."
And there's all these things that would happen like in the surround channels.
That I could tell with just them going like, this might make it better.
So what do you want to give this as a rating?
What was the name? Shoot, what was the name for the special powers?
Oh,
I wish I had that handy.
I can't remember. So what's
Me neither.
Kano Laser Eyes?
Okay, Kano Laser Eyes.
I'm gonna give this 3 out of 10 Kano Laser Eyes.
You are very disappointed.
Yeah.
So, I know I've been talking badly about this movie this entire time, and I think that's mainly because it's more fun to do that. And it's not a good movie, but I went into it with no expectations, having not had as much experience with the series as you did. And I loved that first 8 minutes so much. And I like to the point where I want to give it a worse rating because the rest of the movie isn't like that. But I'm also going to be like, there were some fun fight scenes, and like they really went into like the fun kind of campy horror gore aspect of it. So I don't know. I have a hard time giving it less than 7. So I'm going to give it a 7.
You know what? It's fair, and I'm bummed, and I'm wondering if I could have seen this in the theater with my buddies. I think I would have been an 8. Watching it by myself just kind of created this like, now I'm judging you, and I hate that. I hate being cynical. Like I really, I try to find the good in everything I watch, but like this had so much potential, and it's a guy carrying a bucket of ice up the stairs, and he just splattered, and like. The drink's still cold, I guess, but he dropped everything. I don't know what this analogy means. I'm just upset. I'll have to give it another go some point. I really, really want them to make a sequel. A sequel focused on Johnny Cage, SubZero coming back because he did such a great job. They weren't beating around the bush at the end when everyone teleported their dead bodies away. It's like everyone could come back because fuck it.
It
was such a great ending message. So cool.
I think we will get a sequel. I was looking at the show notes that Aaron put together, and it had like a budget of $50 million. So, and it shows.
Yeah.
And it made, I think, already 55. Estimated.
Like it's gonna do gangbusters over the long run.
I think when you combine like how they're gonna factor in like people going to HBO Max to watch it, and
well, the director's already on Twitter saying like, who do you want to play Johnny Cage? They did a Q&A with the actors talking about which actors they want to play Johnny Cage. Who would you pick to play Johnny Cage if you could pick the actor?
Oh, I don't even know actors anymore. Like it's so hard to like decide, like, because it has to be someone relatively young. I wish I could think of anybody, honestly. Like I just can't think of any. I'm so out of touch when it comes to that.
Say we're out of time, but I'll just say I'll dance around the caveat of him having to be young, because my favorite Johnny Cage incarnation. See, that's the thing. Like, yeah, Aaron brings up a good point. Like Chris Evans in Scott Pilgrim is kind of the soul of Johnny Cage, and I would love to see him do that. But it would be so Chris Evans. It's a little too on the nose for me. But I would fully support him being cast. But my favorite like iteration of Johnny Cage is in the new games where he's a dad and he's divorced from Sonya, and like he's just an older Johnny Cage. And I think James Marsden would be really good. Like, because I don't think he's been given a platform to be that kind of. I think he could play that Chris Evans energy from Scott Pilgrim really well. So
if we were looking for like arrogant Johnny Cage that you kind of hate, and maybe you want to see murdered, then maybe Chris Pratt could do it. But besides that, I don't know.
Fully support a sequel. I wish I enjoyed this movie more. I wanted to give this movie a 9. I wanted to love it so much. So that's why I'm sad. So
it's hard out there, Ron. It's real hard out there. Okay, everybody, that's going to wrap up this episode of Pixel Theater. We hope you've enjoyed it. We know we've enjoyed it, and that's why we do it, because, things are fun. If you'd like the show, tell everybody you know about it, review it, rate it on your favorite podcasting app. Go to Facebook, talk to us. Go to Twitter, yell at us. I don't know. Yeah, Ron's there all the time. Just hanging out, Mr. Facebook. That's what we call him. But until next time, I've been Nick Noel, and he's been Ron Stratton, and this is a weird way that I decided to end this for the first time ever. Bye.
This is a technical difficulties production.